There we go. Audio works now.
随分と前に亡くなった祖母は旅が好きだった。見知らぬ景色、見知らぬ人々、見知らぬ者との出会いが大好きで、高い天井で育てば背が伸びるというように世界を広く持つことが人を大きくするのだと。そして高校2年の夏休み、私も遠くへ旅に出る。部活の合宿なのだけれど、これも旅には違いない。電車と車を乗り継いで私たちは南の海へ。剣と道着をカバンに詰めて鬼ヶ島を望む岬の山門へ。そこで私が出会うのは我が部を支えるナイジャの子。旅先で知る新たな顔も出会いといえば出会いなのかも。相沢康美。ここよりさらに南から来た目的不明の先住者。ちょっと苦手かもしれない。火や右は神よの剣を携えて神増島へと向かう北緯の剣気。かや皿の木に咲く白の中、ひときわ異彩に咲き生える枯れずの赤い椿にも似た紅白。そして私がたどり着いた夜、互いに惹かれ合うように波に運ばれやってきた少女。波投げ入れられた6つの小石、波紋が重なりあやをなし、まだ見ぬ絵巻を織り上げる。月の満ち欠け、潮の満ち引き、水面を乱す定めの巡り。瑠璃の都にまどろむ竜をいざなう嵐に私は抗う。無限の波は我が次の鼓動。青い城。
We're back again with Aoi Shiro.
ちょっとセーブデータがないわよ。
There's no save data, she said. Consolation goods. This little graphical mismatch, it really does bother me a little bit. Momoko stood on a platform, stretching to look over us. She pointed to a road that went from the side towards the back of the temple. So, the plan was a round-trip course through the Sala Forest and back. Oh. Hello, Sarah. We have just started back up where we left off last time. Of course, we had gone through many harrowing things last time, including a lot more dinner conversations regarding meat. And once again, we are here at the point that killed us weeks ago, Momoko's test of courage. Of course, last time the big highlight was that we had a magnificent ghost story. Like, just a wonderful, wonderful, delightful scene that I got really into, which was also, I remember one of my favorite things back when I originally played in 2008. I didn't think about how I was saying that year, 2008. Since Momoko was still a first-year student, whatever she decided, she'd be more lenient than the people who planned the previous years. Aoi Shiro was subject to an embarrassing time at last year's punishment game and came up with a cunning solution to get around it. Momoko dealt with Aoi Shiro's suggestion in a leisurely manner. It seems she already researched this and thumped her small chest in pride. Rex coffee. From behind her, Momoko brought out something as striking as the Mitokomon seal and held it up high. Looking at what Momoko held up, we were at a loss for words. It was a 250 milliliter vertical can, a common size. The durable steel was suitable for heating it in the winter, and the yellow base and black lines made it distinctive even at night. The product's name was Rex Coffee. It used plenty of condensed milk instead of regular milk and proclaimed itself the taste of a king. The design was said to be derived from the fur of the most fearsome carnivore mammal of the cat family. Beware of danger. Don't come near here. Though it might bring to mind the warning signs at a construction site instead. I've heard that they were increasing their range of sales, but it was still a pretty regional item limited to Western Japan, or so I thought. Like Momoko said, this item shouldn't be sold in Osaka, so why was it here? Maybe it was in reaction to the silence, but it suddenly became quite lively. Of course, the topic was the person who sent over the gifts for the troops. since it didn't use milk but condensed milk and a lot of it. Now, no matter how much Senpai believed in eating sweet things when one's tired, as coffee, this was just unacceptably sweet. It wasn't coffee-flavored milk, but rather coffee-flavored condensed milk. That's what was in the can. Had quite a helping of calories. That was only at first, after I was recommended to just try it and see. It tastes good. I didn't see her. She wouldn't have been obscured by the other team members, given how tall she was. Well, after dinner, a bath, and the long ghost stories in the main temple, it has gotten rather late. Since we were talking about Migiwa, I couldn't just accept that at face value. A classical thing to do would be to wave a ball of cotton filled with ethanol in midair from something like Migiwa's fishing pole. Even if she didn't go that far, she might be wearing a long-haired wig and white shirt to be pretending and waiting with the camera in hand. When Momoko denied it, I did wonder what the truth was. Unless she had some important task at hand, I didn't think Migiwa would really sit this one out entirely, but even if I grilled her, I wouldn't get an answer, so I just prepared myself to put this matter aside for now. And then Momoko continued with her preliminary explanations. She had blocked off the side paths, which would cause one to get lost, with plastic string in the afternoon. While Yasumi, Nami, and I were in the bath, she'd brought over the wrecked coffee and checked it with flashlight, so that no one would get lost along the path. With that, the preliminary explanation was over, and it was finally time to divide into pairs. At the test of courage at last year's camp, we had to face it by ourselves by going one by one alone, but for one thing, since we were using our wooden sword talisman in place of a baton, going one by one would take far too long. And two, though this was part of the temple, it wasn't fenced off like the school, and so we shouldn't really let girls walk around alone at night in the woods. And finally, there were going to be girls who would be too scared to continue if they didn't go accompanied. Well, there's some that think that the proper way to do a test of courage is in pairs anyway. Ah, yes. I was well aware of my bad luck at drawing lots, but putting that aside, the captain should be at the vanguard of the army. Preparing myself, I drew a lot from the ones that Momoko was holding out. At the tip of the twisted pieces of paper was a number. We'd go in order and pair up with the person who had the same number as us. It's true that since I picked the last number, it's going to be easy to understand what order I'm in, but I didn't really think picking that demonstrated my bad luck in any particular way. Momoko said that in a slightly pleading voice. Well, even if there were an extra 10 cans, it wouldn't add too much weight, but... people to draw lots. She laughed at the idea that there might be a punishment game of sorts. Yes. So, one of the things that you may remember is that in basically it's in Kohaku's route, right? So, in the part that we died a few weeks ago when we tried to do this test of courage, we got to choose, actually. And based on your choice, you ended up either going with Momoko or Aoi-sensei or Aoi Shiro. This time you don't get to choose, because we're on the Yasumi Express right now. The twisted pieces of paper that Yasumi picked up had the same number as mine. Hello, Sylvie. Yes, it may contain violent and graphic depictions of I don't know. Well, I mean, like, we have had some violent and graphic depictions of arms severing by wires, but I don't think most of y'all were here that week. I think only Sarah saw it with me. We're back to the graphic and violent depictions of awkward teen lesbianism. Today seemed to be some kind of fateful day. I thought she was saying more than was necessary there. So, the matter of bringing back the box was also cancelled. She was rather protective. Well, I hadn't been planning on having Yasumi carry it back anyway. Yasumi was always trying her best, and then pushing herself too hard as a result. I wondered why I couldn't leave her alone in that case. The test of courage proceeded without a hitch, and finally it was our turn. And the baton of Kumochi was passed to us. Since it's coming from someone who experienced it, that seems to be this sort of test of courage. Saying it in reverse, or the other way around, as long as we stay in open areas, we probably don't need to rely too much on our flashlights. Nami nodded at Yasumi's words and slowly padded towards Aoi Shiro. Aoi Shiro welcomed her into her arms and let out a little sigh. After going past the temple grounds, gravestones dotted the area that opened up in the middle of the mountain path. To get to the South Forest, we'd have to go past this place. To get deeper inside, we'd have to go... Oh, I think they just duplicated that line. That Momoko. She did a pretty good job of setting this up. When she was explaining about going to the Tokasaki no Tsubaki and bringing proof back, she didn't mention a graveyard at all. In other words, she was surprising us with the fact that we'd have to walk past the gravestones. It wasn't a bad plan to create an atmosphere like this at the start, but still. Maybe it was because of the white sunflowers that had fallen and were acting like a reflective plate across the ground. The road was brighter than I thought it would be, and the scenery was more fantastically beautiful than eerie. We were enveloped in blue darkness, and the mountain of the Sal Forest with the summer Tsubaki towered before us, casting shadows. Yes, you could tell that I was multitasking. Hello, Victor, also. So, Aoi Sensei also gave us warnings not to do anything to anger the goddess. Thinking about that, ahead of us wasn't just a mountain filled with Tsubaki, but a forest filled with summer Tsubaki, or salflowers. In the Sal Forest filled with these Tsubaki, there was only one eternally blooming Tsubaki. She was one to steadily work and do her best, and I thought of her as the type of person close to Aoi Shiro's type. Knowing those types of friendly people, I thought that they would be pretty weak at dealing with unexpected or unknown situations. Probably. Anyway. It was the same for me. I was neither good nor bad at dealing with ghosts and the supernatural. Wait, really? It says intended for certain audiences? I mean, it's true that this game, it's intended for us. We are the certain audiences. But the hand that was holding the light trembled a bit, so she might be a little more frightened than she was letting on. A little more frightened than me. Slightly awkward to carry the light in both hands, it was a good size to still keep hold of in one hand. Her free hand was clutching at her chest. It was a little embarrassing, but I thought I should demonstrate at least that I was a reliable senpai somehow. And then, at that moment, the hearts of both of us made a big leap at the same time. Doki doki, doki doki. Like the moment you miss a step going up and down a staircase, everyone's had an experience like that, which shortened their lifespan just a little. I actually had one of those just a little bit earlier this afternoon. I was in Elden Ring in one of my brief breaks in the day, and I was talking to an NPC during a long conversation when an enemy just like barreled in and like started hacking at the guy. It was very amusing. A bit rude though. We'd stepped in something that wasn't quite a pit, but it definitely had the height difference between the path and itself, sort of like a ditch. That ditch was covered by fallen white flowers, and at night it didn't look particularly different than any other part of the road. And that's why we weren't prepared for the difference and stepped carelessly. The sudden feeling of stepping on air and falling was just for an instant, but I felt like Momoko should pay for this. And even more than for tonight's event. She's got so much vitriol in her voice while she's talking about how diligent Momoko is. This was just the beginning, and once we entered the forest, full-blown traps might be awaiting us. Ah, this might be a good opportunity. At that moment, my luck had been unexpectedly good, but it did make me want to be even more cautious. Might be that Yasumi made an even more surprised face than she had earlier, and I asked that. Oh no, it's an sono eto. Her eyes were swirling, and she couldn't calm down. Even in the moonlight, I could tell that her cheeks and neck were dyed pink. She shyly gripped the hand that I held out for her and smiled. We went deeper into the Sala forest. Holding hands, Yasumi and I walked deeper along the path. I slowed down my steps a little and matched her pace as she quickened hers in time. Neither of us were completely in step. Relying on the pulse and warmth of our linked hands, we gradually began walking at the same speed. The flowers that had fallen in the evening were like a bright white carpet, and we walked down that road. Those flowers would probably bloom again in the morning. Looking up at the cracks in the white buds, they shined like stars. The flowers weren't in full bloom, which was a little bit regrettable. The smell of the flowers was markedly strong. I knew a scene that greatly resembled this. It was a different scene than the Sala forest that Yasumi and I were walking through, but parts of it were very similar. I knew a scene that gave me deja vu like this. Her grip on my hand tightened a little. More than her voice or her complexion, the uneasiness was transferred through her hands. I gently squeezed her stiff hand to try and relieve the tension from her. Maybe she was afraid that I was going to tell a scary story or something like that. Well, if it was Momoko, that was a possibility, though. With a sigh, Yasumi loosened her grip. She slowed her pace a little, so it looked like I was pulling her along with my hand. It resembled this one, but the dream wasn't the same as it was right now. Unlike now, where I was half grown in my dream, I was still a little kid. Different than the demure Yasumi in my dream, there was a young, energetic girl leading me forward. The flowers in that forest weren't white, summer tsubaki, which would scatter in one day. It wasn't a forest of sol flowers or summer tsubaki, but a forest of properly red camellias. If that was a fragment of a distant memory, though, if that dream was a memory of 8 years ago, sunken deep within the abyss of myself. Yes, if that dream was a memory of 8 years ago. Truly one of the visual novel lines of all time. And in isolation, you could never tell what visual novel it was from. You change that to 6 years ago and it becomes AI the Somnium Files. Oops. Sorry, I had to demurely sneeze twice in a row. Was the accident at sea 8 years ago because I, an outsider, had entered the forest of Tsubaki? And because of that, it wasn't me, but Natsune-san who... No. Even if I hadn't entered, the monk said that every year the sea gets rough around this time. Yasumi's voice dragged me back from my ponderings. Just at that instant, the trees rustled. I wondered if it was one of Momoko's traps. I didn't remember stepping on a string attached to a noisemaker or anything like that, though. And then there was something where the noise had come from. In the shade of the far-off sal tree, there's some human-shaped thing. I thought it might be someone like Migiwa who was concealing themselves along the way, but that wasn't it. Even from this far away and at night, that shadow probably was shorter than waist height. Even Nami wasn't that short. It looked something like a wild monkey. But more than a monkey. From the shadows on its human-shaped head, I could see two prominent protrusions like the horns of an oni. The things that looked like horns were long, pointy ears. Yeah, it's a little gerblin. I like how they got their little tongue hanging out there. The light Yasumi held lit up part of the dark forest, not illuminated by the moonlight. And there, a strange shadow with red eyes looked back at us. It looked like both a human and a monkey, like something a mixture of the two. Oh. We dodged the light of a flashlight, and once again there was only darkness left. The image of 2 points of light, the color of blood, was burned into my eyelids. It might be a large doll made to enter your field of vision when you're relaxed, your concentration, but the large prominent eyes, where only the iris was visible, not uncommon in animals, were brilliant red like a bicycle reflector. Even if I didn't stand out, it just left there. It had a strange appearance in the dark. Even if it were small for a human, it was pretty big for a doll. I shouldn't have missed something like that if it were brought in with the other luggage. It might be inflatable like a flotation device, or sent along in the package for today, or was a prior arrangement with the monk, I suppose. Maybe Yasumi was really surprised because when I turned and looked at her, she'd held her breath and stopped walking. Our hands separated from one another. Yasumi shut her eyes tight and held both hands together as if offering a prayer. Alright. Our decision. Are we to staying close to Yasumi? Or are we to identify suspicious shadows? Yes, hurry, we must vote. We must vote. Are we to stay close to Yasumi or to identify suspicious shadows? We must know. Ah, one for stay close, one for Gorblin. At this rate, Gorblin might win. So we're really stacking the deck there. Alright. I'll give us 15 more seconds, or we're gonna go identify the suspicious shadows. Alright. In 10, gone once, gone twice, sold to Gorblins. By the way, Gorblin's the wrong choice for Yasumi's route, but it's okay, I did a quick save. Perhaps having heard the sound of my footsteps, Yasumi moved slightly, and the impression of a prayer statue was no more. Yasumi might have heard the sound of my footsteps, and she unfroze from her prayer-like position and started to move. The illumination of the flashlight held in her hand fluttered as it passed over to me to light the way ahead. Past the packed road where people walked, I stepped on what hadn't been touched by anyone in years, decades, maybe centuries. I thought about the Tsubaki Mountain, where outsiders weren't supposed to go, but first, this was summer Tsubaki here, not proper Tsubaki. Finally, the surrounding summer Tsubaki in my way were... I stepped into a blind spot where the flashlight's light didn't reach. I gripped the wind sword, blessing the regular training that allowed me to read the presence from the howling of wind. A heavy impact ran through the arm that held the wind sword. Was that? What exactly? Komochi had stopped, a hand in a palm like a glove, and sharp claws the length of my finger. Also, Vector, don't look at the screen. The arm, which greatly differed from a normal human's, was like that of an evil spirit of the mountains or rivers. If I had gotten hit straight on with something like that. A moment later, my brain recognized the danger, sending chaotic orders to my heart to fill the body with strength needed for escape. I felt as if my whole body was burning because of friction and the flow of the blood, cold sweat forming on me without me realizing. Was that a doll being used to scare participants in a test of courage? My mind rejected the possibility of such a grotesque mockery of a human being, but the monstrosity before me seemed alive. The ends of the mouth were lifted up, and a row of teeth poked out underneath them. Fangs as large as claws, something was dripping from them. I reflexively closed my eyes, and in the next instant, a sharp sound, like the cutting wind, breezed past my head, causing the hair near my ears to stand up. A genuine shiver, different from mere carnal repugnance, ran down my back. I opened my eyes and saw a little hole form. On the face of the large-mouthed Oni, I saw a hole that gradually expanded, and I could see through that hole to the darkness beyond. And after not even blinking an eye, the hole crumpled. The destruction spread to the whole body, and finally the small Oni shattered entirely into pieces and disappeared, leaving not even dust behind. Yasumi's voice was closer than expected as she tread through the underbrush. The bright light that she held made me squint. The man-made light, which wasn't a weird thing at all, gave me almost a sense of relief. Yasumi looked around. There was only summer Tsubaki and the darkness of night, nothing else. There was nothing there, except at the very end, something went past the shoulder of the girl standing next to me. I felt as if I saw someone with a pale complexion, but also lasted only for a moment. Besides that incident, there was nothing much. Occasionally, surprised by Momoko's traps, Yasumi and I went into the Sal Forest. A slight wind was blowing. Now, you didn't die. I did have to fake you out a little bit. If I'm not mistaken, that actually was a thing that you do to unlock a seal on Kohaku's route. Which is like, again, I don't know if you would intuit that at all. This game really wasn't designed for you to, like, intuit how to unlock routes necessarily, so much as it was designed for you to just, like, exhaust every possible option to unlock routes. We're quick loading, though. We're going to stay close to Yasumi.
大丈夫よ。もし襲ってきても
Yeah, and I mean, like, this wasn't even uncommon. Like, to my understanding, and obviously, like, I haven't played every 2000s visual novel, but I do feel like most of them that I've played do sort of take on that stance of, we just want you to read every word that we wrote. Please, read every single word. And it's possible to just get, you know, get a lot out of it just from doing one single route. But, if you want more, they really do want you to go all in. Ah, here we go. CG time. Adding my free hand, I used both my hands to grip Kumochi while hiding Yasumi behind my back. Since I didn't really plan on leaving her side, I used the Seigan stance with few openings instead of a Jodan stance for attacking. I gripped the wooden sword that was called a miraculous talisman and faced the darkness.
私から離れなければ大丈夫
People who have neither fangs nor claws wouldn't be able to win against a stray dog barehanded, but the wooden sword, polished from a sabaki tree, felt as if it melded into my hand, and that familiar feeling gave me confidence.
大丈夫だから
The darkness that I glared into didn't move. Past the flashlight's illumination and not lit by the moonlight, the darkness remained solid. If it were a doll, it wouldn't move, but I might have seen something living, so I held my breath and used my 5 senses to search for a presence. As she moved, I heard a sound from Yasumi, who had been stiff as a rock before. As she began to move, she let out a sigh, like she was relieved or tired.
はいもう大丈夫です
I didn't understand why she'd said that. She was okay now?
あ、よしみどあ、なんでもないです気のせいでいろいろ怖いものに見えたりするし幽霊の正体見たりってやつ
I didn't think that the withered maned grass or tree holes would be mistaken for a ghost. But if it helped calm Yasumi down, I was fine to leave it at that. However, just in case, I asked Yasumi to shine the light at the place that we were looking at just moments ago.
誰
Hold on, I gotta hear the laugh again. Oh wait, come on, go back. Oh, this game's design is so broken, it won't go back and let me hear it. Oh.
進行状態の把握は大事よね
Damn. Where's that? There we go. Nope, not that. I swear we had a history button on here. Didn't we? Damn. Okay, well, fine. I like hearing Kohaku's laugh is all. That wasn't the dark red small Oni I saw earlier. Bathed in the moonlight and faintly shining, that white complexion was more like the white petals of the trees in the cauliflower. I felt like I'd seen it only for an instant.
休み今何か見たいいえ
When Yasumi pointed the flashlight in the direction it was facing, there was no one there. Besides that incident, there was nothing much to remark on. Occasionally, we were surprised by Momoko's traps, but Yasumi and I went further into the Sal forest. A slight wind was blowing. The branches of the Sal trees, where the flowers had fallen, shook, and they rustled their leaves.
明日は天気荒れるかもね山の天気は変わりやすいって言いますもんね山っていうほどの山じゃないんだけどもうじき海が荒れるって話ですけどそうなってほしくないですね水着も買ったことだしね
Looking up at the sky, I didn't see anything like a rain cloud at all around. The wind was strong, and that was about it. The crowd of Saltries whispered anxiously in a great unrest.
本当に大丈夫よね。あ、先輩、見えます？え？
I wondered if it was worth such excitement as Yasumi grabbed my hand and quickened her pace. Stepping on the white sunflowers, we headed towards what she'd seen. I guess even among trees were different grades of them. The common tsubaki stood at a distance, marking a wide circle around it. Though the area was open, the illumination provided by the moon wasn't too much greater than what we'd been holding in her hand. Hello, Lappy, welcome. The red color of the flowers was clearly visible.
これが矛先に。
Deep in the Sal forest, there was a red tsubaki that never wilted. It's true that the tree was red, and not one flower had fallen near its roots, which were swept clean. It seemed as if it was constantly in full bloom. All the petals of the flowers were opened wide, fully blooming. It gave the impression that it might even be fake, but though it was only one tree, it overwhelmed the others, and the essence it released proved it wasn't artificial. Looking at those flowers, I myself thought it was strange, but it was similar to when I saw Nami. It was hard to breathe, and the feeling was difficult to describe. It felt like the waves of a high tide. The flood of memories made my heart sway. The inertia created by those waves made my legs wobble. Blue waves swayed. It was like the time that I was enchanted by that princess-like doll that resembled a mermaid. And this time, by the time that enchantment faded, I was already this close. I put my hand under the trunk of the tree. For a moment, I thought that the trunk had expanded and contracted as if it was pulsating. It felt as if the world I knew had swelled and then shriveled again. It might have been the pulse of my hand, but something was flowing. Something was flowing into me through the palm of my hand. No, Lappy, don't worry. We are still on the Yasumi Route. In fact, if you're curious, flowchart for where we are right now. Where are we right now, actually? Oh, the flowchart doesn't know where we are, actually. Well, we'll be fine, even if the flowchart doesn't know. I got the impression of something red like blood. Something crimson was flowing through me. Drop. Drip, drop, drip, drop. The red flowers fell. As if they had accomplished their mission, the red flowers fell all at once. Unlike the airy petals, the flowers that scattered with their ends attached kept themselves together, making a loud thud as they dropped to the ground. Standing under the outstretched branches, they hit me as they fell. No matter the reason, the flowers were scattering. I wondered if their surrounding sal trees were scattering flowers from their branches as if piling up snow. I'd heard that this was an everlasting tsubaki, that had lasted for years, decades, even centuries. I suppose it was a fake? If that were so, then there's no problem with the flowers scattering, right? But still, this feeling, where have I felt it before?
花が矛先の椿。
Yasumi's words brought me back to my senses. This wasn't the time to be flustered. I'm the captain, and also a senpai. I'm not sure whether Yasumi had believed in it or not, but she let out a rather long sigh. I looked down at the roots where the flowers lay like a pool of blood, having fallen from the now bare branches. Yasumi's downcast eyes and lashes blocked the azure moonlight and cast a bluish-black shadow across her face. I felt that I'd also seen that expression on her recently, but more importantly right now. Ah! An ill portent of a centuries blooming tree suddenly dropping all of its flowers. What bad, what rotten luck. Yes, the flowers lay like a puppet with their strings cut. Exactly, Sylvie. No, thinking about it, I can't say that was entirely true. Ah, Shoko. If the testimony of the groups was accumulated, it would definitely be easy to pick out the culprit who was responsible for making all the flowers drop, definitely. No, I didn't plan on hiding this exactly, but I'd be fine if someone was angry with me starting tomorrow morning. It was already late tonight, and the monk might be sleeping. I answered as I normally would, but the palm of my hand that had touched the trunk was mysteriously warm. The heavy warmth reached my wrist, my arm, and my shoulder slowly invaded upwards, aiming for my heart. The air in my lungs expanded. I couldn't relieve the stifling, suffocating feeling I felt after seeing the Tokisaki no Tsubaki. My heart was beating like an alarm, faster even than right before or after a match. The mysterious warmth flowed through my body. The breeze, which contained moisture from the sea, was a bit cold. To divert Yasumi's attention away from me, I looked at the cardboard box at the foot of the Tokisaki no Tsubaki. Yes. Power. Or maybe she just got blood. Or maybe she got sword. She didn't get sword. But we did see a strange glimpse of a CG with Yasumi having sword. So maybe we'll find out what that's about in Yasumi's route. I picked up the proof that we'd reached this place. Well, since we were the last ones, we should probably just carry the rest of the case back. I lifted up the Rex coffee case, which still had 10 or more cans remaining. One can contained 250 milliliters. The contents were heavier than water, but even with that weight, 10 of them shouldn't be more than 5 kilograms. So, with my stamina, it shouldn't be too difficult to carry. However, was it supposed to feel this light? I was in the middle of the ocean. The weight of the water pressed against me. Oh no, EP girl syndrome. The weight of the water pressed against me. The undulation of the waves rubbed against my skin. The flow of the water drew me along. blue-white water was cold, my body also became cold as the heat drained away from it. The blue-white water was chilled to the core. I saw a light above, a pale light. I wondered why I recognized that it was a gate. At that moment, something hot flowed towards me. The taste that expanded in my mouth resembled a little the waves that surrounded me, but was countless times more condensed. Viscous, thick liquid. The slightly sweet, metallic liquid was... I woke up. I woke up in a different room than yesterday. Nami was in the futon next to mine, and past her, Yasumi was sleeping. Because Nami was attached to Yasumi and I, we changed the room assignments a little bit. The moonlight shining past the door screen might have resembled a little blue light that I saw from my dream last night. Some say that the light of the moon is the light... light that has died. Though much brighter than the blinking stars, it's only borrowed light, just a reflection, like the water's borrowed rays of the sun reflected on the beach. That pure, pale light that held no heat was the shadow of light that had died. Even so, though that light gave such a cold impression, I'd also had a chilling dream. Was it the weather that was hot, or was my body just feeling warm? I let out a big sigh and got out from under my futon. The raging wind was strong. If this were a desert and not the beach, the wind would have swirled up dry sands, and soon I'd be completely covered by it. Perhaps the waves were fanned by the wind, because they were also quite high. Today's ocean and yesterday's ocean were quite different creatures. Was it because we were getting closer to the time of the festival? The people here believed that the sea became rough because the spirit of the Oni King raged, but maybe I was to blame. The Tsubaki Hill is said to hate outsiders. We went into the summer Tsubaki forest, and I caused Yasuhime-sama's Tokusaki no Tsubaki to scatter. That's why. Maybe it's my fault. A frightening sound reverberated in my ears. It was like the sound of a raging bull. Yeah, I love when there's a festival that gets closer. It wasn't my imagination. The sound wasn't just in my head. I could hear it coming from the island, from Urashima, where the Oni King was said to have been defeated all those years ago. From my cold shoulders, which were now completely cooled by the swirling wind, and turned my back to the Unosaka Sea. It's okay. It'll be okay. I climbed up the stone steps and passed by the temple gate. A faint blue-white shadow entered the edge of my vision, causing my heart to pound. Like moonlight peering through the darkness, the shadow of a person with long hair fluttered as it moved. Could this be? Was this what attacked Aoi Shiro last night? It wasn't. I love that immediate deflation of like, could this be? No. I'd been mistaken. I was thinking too much and would have even been scared if I saw dried pampas grass. Nami noticed me and patted my way. She grabbed and hugged me. yeah, I do like that the fan translator chose padded as her, like, Nami's primary movement verb. She pads. As Aoi Shiro came to give a greeting, I noticed her complexion was just as bad as yesterday. I'm trying to decide something, though. Hey, chat, what criteria do you think I should use for resetting the vampirism incident counter? We'll just think of that. I thought that might have caused her to have trouble sleeping, since Aoi Shiro was the type to be easily frightened. Continuing from yesterday morning, the cause of Aoi Shiro's condition could be sleeping soundly in the next futon was Yasumi, who was pretty bad at getting up in the morning. Her complexion didn't look that bad. Anyways, there was no need to wake Nami. I brought my face close to Yasumi, shaking her, as I called out in a low voice. Yes, Sylvia, I agree. It's if a vampire drinks someone's blood on screen. Or, well, they don't have to be a vampire. If blood drinking on screen happens. The implication of blood drinking. Yeah, I would say if we get definitive statements in the text that blood drinking has happened. Just to muddy the waters a little. She was turning red and then pale this morning all at once, but her physical condition didn't seem that bad. I am simply saying things in order to stoke your speculations. The person who raised her hand with force was not Aoi Shiro, but she gave a big nod, indicating that she'd definitely seen it. This, like, clock-ticking background music, as if we're getting someone recounting important testimony. Momoko overdid the retelling of the story, ending with a scream. I love Momoko. It definitely wasn't Nami, because this ghost had a good sense of fashion.
です。それで私がうおーって指さしたら、その声聞こえて起きた人。
the fucking crow call there.
それでモーサ先輩は私を信じてくれてるのでしょうか。
Oh, look at this pathetic Momoko. Look at her. You have to pat her head when she looks like that. You have to.
モモちゃん、ファイト。
Fight, oh. Her voice lacked spirit, but it seems she'd regained some of her resolve and she continued her story.
そのすぐ後のことなんですけどね、急に部屋がガタガタミシミシ言いまして、耳を澄ますと外からは変な低い音が聞こえてくるわけですよ。おーってミギーさんの話で後ろに出てきたじゃないですか。てっきりあれにお寺が襲われたのかと思いましたね。絶対先輩信じてないです。私もさすがにここまで来たら嘘っぽいと思ってます。ももちゃん、誰も信じないなんて言ってないでしょ。その音なら私も聞いたし。
I saw a bizarre thing at the test of courage last night. A living creature like a small oni, and for a moment seemed to have the shadow of a small statured person. It was about the same size as Nami, but its pale face was far too white to be hers. And what peeked out from its upturned mouth was a pair of something like vampire fangs.
Aoi Shiro, ちょっと首筋見せて。
Dun dun dun! I lifted up her jaw and put my face close to her neck.
見てわかる傷はないみたいね。
I lightly brushed the area, but the skin was smooth and I didn't feel anything catch on my fingertips. You know, normal girl things that you do when you're checking your bestie for vampire bites. Which, by the way, is like such a smooth move at a girl's sleepover to like get someone scared of a vampire attack and then be like, oh bestie, don't worry. I'll check your neck for vampire bites.
痛かったりとかの自覚はないですけど、それなら吸血鬼というよ。
Perhaps it was ticklish because Ayashiro's shoulders flinched and her eyebrows twitched. She tried to endure, but her whole body quivered. Beneath the palm of my hand, past the thin white skin, I could tell that her warm blood was flowing.
翔子さん、どうしました？いえ、
That couldn't be true.
翔子先輩、ちょっと考え事してただけよ。
Yes, it was. And I was thinking too much.
それにしても、2日連続でこんなことがあったりするとなると、何か対策が必要よね。
Anyway, so, should we consult with the monk or should we just go to morning practice? I will let you know that there is a theoretical right answer here, but I don't think that it is plot essential. So, you know. Okay, monk moments? Monk moments is winning out. Monk moments is winning out. Do we want to skip the monk? Okay, I think we have a quorum on consultation with the monk. Since we couldn't clear up the matter ourselves, we should discuss it with the adults. Though he said he didn't have any spiritual sense, we didn't really either. Sure, I'm sure that monks can, like, at least bluff their way through talking about vampires, maybe. He should have knowledge gained through the years that we didn't. Ashiro tried to smile to show that she was okay, but Her smile was a little pathetic. The smile tugged at my heart. I couldn't stand looking at it, so I escaped by leaving the room. The monk should be at the bell altar. I caught up with the monk as he was returning to the main temple after ringing the bell, and I explained the situation to him. If Aoi Shiro was the only one who saw it, in all probability it could have remained a figment of her imagination while she was drowsy. He didn't seem to have anything that could counter a ghost besides Kumochi. Sickness starts from the spirit, so he's saying that ghosts also start from the spirit. And that's how things turned out. He's been like the cool monk for so many different scenes, but now he's definitely in like the most youth pastor mode he's been in all game. After that intro to us first-timers, Zen meditation time began. Though we weren't doing anything in particular, it was rather hard to just sit for the sake of sitting. In addition, the monk only went easy on us in the beginning. If you fidgeted or tried to relieve your numb feet, the monk would, without mercy, unleash his Zen stick. Bigya! It was only natural that the one to receive the most wax from the great swordsman monk was Momoko, who couldn't sit still. I was also a little numb, but it wasn't so bad that I couldn't stand up. If I could force myself to stand up, then I would be able to manage what happens afterwards somehow. No, Sophie. Ironically, this was the correct choice. This is the advertised choice for like getting surefire ways to get Yasumi's best ending. As Momoko tried to force herself to stand up, her foot flew back as she fell. Was it her butt that hit the ground that hurt, or her cramped feet, or both? The monk spoke as he tapped the Zen stick on his shoulder. Ah, that's right. Besides the matter concerning Aoi Shiro, there was something else that I needed to tell the monk. Are we going to repent? You see, there was a reason why choosing the monk was the right choice. And it's because we do have to repent for last night. Unless you all don't want to. Oh, when Shoko touched the eternally blooming Tsubaki, and then all of the flowers immediately fell, and also maybe some sort of blood or vital essence flowed from the tree into her. Yes, I take it we will repent. I told him what happened last night at the test of courage. Whether it was just a coincidence or if it was inevitable because of what I did, the moment I touched the trunk with my hand. It wasn't just one or two flowers. Every single flower had dropped from its branches. It's like what Yasumi said in my defense. I'd only touched it, but at the time I was so entranced by something, and I wasn't really acting normally. And before I could say anything else out loud, the monk cleared everything up nicely. Yeah, it's the me that did that is a very much like, it is a very early aughts, or I guess just like a fan sub-ism. You know, like it's a way to convey, it does feel like a very literal translation, without sort of like adapting or editing or localizing it. I felt a little guilty because of the monk's magnanimity, but I was able to let out a sigh of relief. Along Japan, which is an island that's long lengthwise, it is long lengthwise. I will give it that. That's one thing that they're always saying about Japan, is that it's long lengthwise. Along Japan, which covers a number of latitudes, the exact time when a Tsubaki blooms would also differ from region to region. The blooming front of the Tsubaki, which traveled from south to north, resembled that of a person going around planting Tsubaki as they went. Red Tsubaki. The forest of Tokusaki no Tsubaki I saw in my dream. That's why there was such a frightening sound coming from Hiroshima last night. I didn't say that as a joke at all. The monk tapped his head slightly and made an awkward expression.
これはしたり。部長さんはあの話をまるまる信じてしまいましたか。
そういうわけでは。
純真なお嬢さん方にそのような話を聞かせて、種明かしをせなんだわしが悪かったやもしれん。
I wondered if there was a common sense explanation for the things that happened.
真夜中にそれこそマダムが泣くような不気味な音を聞いた方もおるでしょう。あれは芝鳴りと呼ばれておる現象でして、地元の人間にはこの時期の風物詩のようなものです。不老様の祭りの時期には必ず嵐が訪れるゆえ、風も相当吹くわけですが、部長さん、ビールでも何でも構わんが、瓶の口から息を吹き入れて遊んだことは終わりかね。原理を簡単に説明すると、つまりはそういうことなんじゃ。浦島には相当な数の洞穴が入っており、内部で複雑につながったりしているらしい。そのほとんどは目方さんが管理しておる禁足地にあるそうなんじゃが。
島自体が大きな
祭りの始まる時期を告げる運命のホラ貝というわけじゃな。
Ah. That was a simple explanation to understand, and it reassured me a lot.
なんだ。昔話の鬼の怨念云々には種も仕掛けもあったわけですね。
昔話や伝説を理屈でもって解体すると、その9割ほどには元ネタとなる事件や習俗が見つかると花子さんも言っておる。
So the real identity of the ghost was something like dried pampas grass, wasn't it? For example, the one-eyed, one-legged forge god often seen could be one whose eye got hurt by the hearth and leg got hurt by the bellows. Aoi Sensei said something like that before.
とにかくじゃ、部長さんが矛先の椿をどうにかしたらしいというのとは無関係じゃからご安心召され。
Salmon shioyaki was the main dish this morning. With miso soup, diced eggplant, and yesterday's leftover pork, there was plenty to be had. For side dishes, there was also takota mozuku seaweed and pickled cucumbers made last night. Also, we had pickled radish. Following yesterday's meal of pork was fish today, so Momoko was extremely delighted.
いやいや、マネージャーさんが天蔵を務めてくださると美味しくてつい食べ過ぎてしまいますな。
そうそう。私の滞在中はずっといてほしいくらいだわ。
まさにわしの娘にならんかね。
相沢さんならお嫁に欲しいわ。ダメですよ。ザワッチは寮でも大人気の購買率なんですからね。
Momoko, who was the number one monopolizer of Yasumi, grabbed a hold of Yasumi's arm and pulled her towards her. So, we've seen this scene before, but it was a while ago, so I'm going to play through it. Well, there's no mistake that Seicho had a lot of rich ladies attending, and it was an all-girls school. A teacher from that very all-girls school started talking about something that was a little bit difficult to bring up. Alright, so we are going to skip ahead to this part, because, if you remember, this is where we had the choice of, like, oh no, weather's worsening. Are we gonna stick it out, or are we gonna stop the group training? But we've already gotten the ending for ending training early. In fact, we got 2 different endings related to ending training early. So, yeah, it's true that the wind's gotten stronger, but the weather didn't look like it was gonna get that much worse yet. I felt like we'd surely regret it if we cut our trip short, even though there was no real sign of danger. There was also the situation with Nami. We didn't know anything about her yet, and if both Yasumi and I, who she was attached to, went away, I think that she'd feel lonely. I petted Nami as she worked on the salmon bones. Sensei sighed as she realized that she couldn't contend with a crying child. In the end, over half the people, including myself, decided that we should stick it out.
無茶とかはしないのよ。午前中は普通に練習ですから問題あるようなことはしませんよ。そうね。秋田さんとかは自由時間にこそ無茶をしそうな感じだし。幼いさん、あとお願いね。まずは準備体操から。
I wanted to avoid injuries while Sensei was gone, so I reminded everyone today too that warm-ups were important. There was not a cloud in the sky and the blazing sun was shining down on us as usual. Only, the wind was a lot stronger than yesterday. I wondered if the storm really was going to come up in a few days. I should pass judgment after I see the situation and concentrate for now on practice. No matter how scrupulous I was in warming up, if my mind was distracted, I wouldn't really be able to avoid injuries. Yasumi was wearing sweats and had her beloved stopwatch in one hand. Next to her, Nami was moving her arms up and down in sync, as if the sleeves of her kimono were fluttering. They looked like they were getting in the way. Yasumi fixed Nami's tangled sleeves and gave me an embarrassed smile. It's true that Nami's outfit wasn't really suited to swinging a bamboo sword, but... That was around the age of Nami if she were... around half Nami's age, so if she were 12 or 13, then that certainly wouldn't be doing it. But, you know, if they're writing her as if she's 5 or 6, maybe it would be. You know... If she were interested, I think it'd be fine to let her practice with some swings. I also started by holding out the bamboo sword and trying to copy Natsune-san as she was practicing her swings around me. Migiwa, who wasn't there a moment ago, suddenly appeared. Migiwa placed both hands behind her back and walked around behind each team member like an inspector. She cast a sharp glance around at times. She said things like that, as if she were a coach. I didn't really think what she was saying was wrong, but she could have just made a lucky guess, and she could have said it better. Yasumi blew her whistle. It was time for another 10-minute break. We didn't have our protectors at camp, but we still had to be careful to replace our bodily fluids and prevent heat stroke. It was fine to leave all that to Yasumi for someone with bad luck, so this was a good era for me to be captain. I didn't have as many as Akiko-san, but in this world I think bonds and relationships are far more precious than luck. And speaking of the relationships we formed on this trip,
右輪って剣道はないかな。でも剣道の道具を使って剣道のルールで試合してもあなたたちには負けないと思うけど。
Ardona, she said that was to incite a reaction, but I wasn't child enough to get angry by that.
いくらなんでもオシャ先輩に勝てませんよ。いや、だってこうして練習見てるとさ、あんたたちの中で強いはずのオシャがそれほど強いようには思えなくてね。
She really wasn't holding anything back. You could say that this was one of her characteristics, then.
遠出してきてやることは肝試しとか海水浴とか。ひと夏の思い出ができてよかったわね。
Why was she going on and on like she wanted to pick a fight?
重いし暑いししかも臭い。そんな防具は持ってきてすらいないし、練習もこんなのを午前中にちょろっとだけ。そんなので強くなろうだなんてちゃんちゃらおかしくて笑っちゃうじゃないの。
Did she want to match with me so badly so that we could show her our ability? Well, we're going to have a competition because this isn't the Migiwa route, and we've already actually done this. If you don't remember it. But yes, it was. While you were having fun, I studied the blade. I might also be a bit to blame, but since Migiwa said that much, I was interested in testing her strength. In the end, we decided to have a match. We faced each other as Migiwa played with the Shinai, in one hand, testing how far the end of it would reach.
へえ、やっぱりしないって軽いわね。一応 420g 以上あるんだけどね。真剣ならキロ単位でしょ。まあね。
Anyway, the conversation ended there.
お互いにね。
Since Migiwa was a beginner to kendo, we omitted the part where we crouched before a match and started in a fighting stance.
はじめ。
After Yasumi, with her stopwatch in one hand, announced the beginning of the match, I went for a vertical attack to the head. Migiwa nimbly dodged and jumped backwards. In the space of a breath, I could tell that the basis of her movements wasn't from kendo. As I launched a series of attacks to the front, she moved around lightly with circular movements.
変な動きですね。足の動きでしょうか。
Her footwork wasn't like that of kendo. From blind spot to blind spot, she circled around me. If that was the case, then. I changed from attacking the head to the body. Unlike the head or hand, which could move a lot with just a little motion, it'd be harder for the body to move aside. Just like I thought, I ended my series of misses and hit her. I realized that I'd only grazed her. If you didn't hit the person soundly with the top portion of the sword, it wouldn't count as a strike. Even if it were a real sword and not a bambooed one, you'd have to hit the other person with the edge. If Migiwa had been wearing some sort of protector, that last scratch wouldn't have even left a mark.
じゃあ、そろそろ私も行きますか。
Migiwa narrowed her eyes. In an about face, my impression of her changed from that of being a mischievous cat to a predator hunting for its prey. Though she was a cat, she was a wild one. As usual, Migiwa moved with her mysterious footwork and kept circling to my right. As she rotated, she moved closer and slowly closed the distance between us. How many centimeters remained? The tip of her sword, held in a forward stance, caught my eye.
王神流は打量のごときをもってよしです。
Ojin Ryu. Trying to distract and irritate me like using a fingertip against a resting dragonfly, the tip of her sword made small circles.
これは邪魔な。ねえオサ、知ってる？ヘビはね、相手を睨みつけて動きを封じるの。
Was she trying to agitate me with her clever talk? I didn't think that there was any meaning to rotating the end of her bamboo sword. I remained silent and sharpened my five senses to look for an opening. Her arms were longer than mine, but I had a technique to make up for that. The reach of my sword was longer than hers. I didn't see any opportunities. Perhaps she disliked staying in one place, and she waved the tip of her sword up and down as she moved around. But with movements like that, what Migi was doing, there should be a delay somewhere which would lead to an opening. But her movements didn't falter and only increased in breadth. I thought, she was probably also widening the area for defense. I didn't see any openings at all, and I could only grit my teeth. Even though I knew she was trying to distract me, my attention was drawn to the twirling sword. That won't do, that won't do. In the long term, my entire body would be drawn into that. We weren't wearing protectors, so I wanted to hold back, but since Minky was said that much, I had no choice but to follow through. If the distance between us shortened any further, I'd lose the advantage of my reach. I took a deep breath and prepared myself. I pointed the tip of my sword, which had been continually drawn in by Minkiwa, to the sky. Jodan. It was an upper stance that was all about attacking. I planned on stopping before I made contact, but I wish she wouldn't look down on me so much. Taking a decisive step forward, you close the distance between yourself and your opponent. The left hand lets go, leaving the sword in the right hand, increasing your reach by about 10 centimeters. This is the sports anime shit that I've been waiting for. You plunge straight into the enemy's position with the sword acting like a lance. Minkiwa's eyes opened wide, and on one side, the edge of her lips lifted. Using the slightest of movement, she slid to the side and dodged the attack which came from above. I had attacked straight ahead. She moved to the side, eyes glittering cold as a dragon snake, and she whispered into my ear. Oh, look at the artifacting on this image, how much they've zoomed in. I love this. Kinky. Oh no. I'd happened to change my stance to the set position of aiming at that eye. At that point, I thought I'd lost. Unconsciously, I'd changed from Jodan, the fighting stance, to Chudan, a strongly defensive one. I'd been taken in by Minkiwa's technique. Once again, the tip of Minkiwa's sword twirled in her eye of the snake technique. I couldn't move. Sword? Who did I resemble? The swirling tip of her bamboo sword wrapped around mine. My bamboo sword flew from my hand at that instant. Under the blue sky, I heard Aoi Sensei's angry voice. Though she just climbed to the stairs under the blazing sun, Aoi Sensei wasn't out of breath and proceeded to give us a stern talking to. Place settings not yet. Wait. Damn. There was one person who let out a scream. Her eyes spinning, she headed towards Yasumi, who hadn't even settled down in her seat. Since okayu feels like food used in healing, it brings to mind nanakusagayu, okayu flavored with the 7 herbs of spring. Watercress, shepherd's purse, cudweed, chickweed, henbit, turnip, and daikon radish were the 7 herbs of spring. You don't put those 7 herbs of autumn into okayu. Also, what, were there even 7 herbs of summer?
不良はもうそう言うと思って鶏そぼろとか卵そぼろとかトッピングもいろいろ用意してあるよ。お嫁においで。普段同じ部屋で暮らしてるんだからお嫁も何もないよ。
Yasumi denying the wife allegations. Yasumi smiled and answered with a look like, ah, there's no helping it, as Momoko hugged her, eyes shining.
とりあえず昨日のおそうめんでももちゃんちはおそうめんにトッピングつけるって言ってたのがヒントになったんだけどさ、それが通るかどうかはともかく何事も言うだけ言ってみるものです。それだと禅寺の粥っていうよりは中華粥に近いかもね。
When I heard the dish was okayu, I thought we were returning to vegetarian mode, but it's not so easy to go back, it seems. The first okayu example given already had bonito flakes included in it too. And then the team from the kitchen brought out the main dish of chagayu along with side dishes.
あとはトマトが半分とそっちは枝豆のみぞれしのものです。大根おろしは昨日の残りか。
I do actually think that this is a thing that should happen more often. It's just being served a clean half of a tomato that you eat. I think that would actually be a good thing that we should do more often in more places. I would love to eat a half of a tomato right now, in fact.
それにお酢とお醤油で枝豆に合うんですよ。
お天道様の高いうちからごぎゅっといただきたくなりますな。
I will bravely protect you from the tomatoes that try to assail your doorstep. I will eat all of them to prevent them from ever daring to approach you. Stroking his white beard that had something like bubbles in it, the Awahanyu person gave his impression of the edamame.
鈴木さんはこの後に予定が？
残念ながら時期が時期ですからな。いくらわしでもさすがにの。
Though not a proper monk, he was still a monk. He said it regretfully, as if he had lingering affection for last night's fun. Compared to that, Aoi Sensei was...
先生は飲んじゃってもいいかしら。お買い物に連れて行ってくれないと晩は本当に白いおかゆになっちゃいますよ。ダメです先生、夜までストップ。
Sensei couldn't stop on her own and only stopped after hearing her students' pleas. It seems she needed more training.
もう分かったわよ。でも夜の献立にもこれ以上のものを期待しちゃうわよ。
After that delicious lunch, we went to the main hall to rest our stomachs.
さて、本日の午後の予定ですが、私、夕食のお買い物。相沢さんは昨日も働いたんだし、お買い物ぐらいは誰かに代わってもらってもいいんじゃないかしら。葵先生。
Sensei was censured for not acting like a teacher earlier, but she said something that redeemed herself as a professional instructor.
お店の品揃えだとか、大体の値段だとかは昨日で把握できてるんでしょ？はい。だったら相沢さんは献立を考えてお買い物用のメモを作るだけでいいと思うのよ。でも特売とか。
新聞折り込みのチラシでよければ今すぐにでもお持ちしますぞ。
あ、休み。はい。あなた好意に甘えて休みなさい。
Satisfied by the act alone, the one who'd rescued Yasumi, who couldn't decide what to do, was the monk, and he gave her a fine smile.
他の部員の方に仕事を押し付けるのは気遅れするのでしたが、今晩は節操にお任せください。
さあ、お嬢様がお作りくださるんですか？
おととい昨日と美味しい食事のご評判に預からせていただいてますからな。
The monk patted his stomach which wasn't plump as fitting his age. It didn't look that way just because of his Eastern clothing, neither.
私が地元のうまいものを振る舞って知って。
本場の全料理？
Yasumi was rather interested.
動物性タンパク質がないのは嫌ですよ。
Momoko was half interested and half concerned.
まあ楽しみに待ってくだされ。
Well, I thought as a monk he would probably have allayed Momoko's unfounded worries.
ところでマネージャーさん。
はい。
食材は適当に量を頼んでおきますので、明日の朝食などはその辺でやりくりお願いできますかな。
If you knew what you wanted to make and had the ingredients and mastered the basics, you should be able to make something similar with just about anything. And that was the challenge that the monk had given, at least.
はい、大丈夫です。
良い返事ですな。それなら安心して今日のところは遊んできなさるといい。イエーイ、ザワチン今日遊ぶぜ。というわけで海に行きましょう。ミギーさんも午後暇ならばどうですか？いや、私はいいや。水着持ってないし。
Though we've gotten to know her, she turned down Momoko's friendly invitation without any hesitation. She didn't just decline. Hands on her hips, she stuck out her ample chest and squinted down at Momoko's flat décolletage. Momoko was speechless. Mikiwa's leering gaze slid to the... Oh my god, she's lost her color still. Wow. You completely desaturated Momoko. Mikiwa's leering gaze slid to the side and looked at each of our chests in turn. So, she was saying that those who were in the same age range weren't even her league. Yeah, Mikiwa, I'm like, Mikiwa, to be fair, this is kind of how, like, a brazen 17-year-old lesbian might act, but also, like, girl. Whether it was due to anger or shame, Momoko looked away, her face red. Mikiwa's gaze returned to her and said, perhaps she wanted to talk about herself because she patted her own chest with one hand. Poison sacs. That's what they are. Poison sacs. Since we were talking about vipers, the topic of poison sacs would naturally come up. You can get your poison sacs surgically enlarged, you know. This would be a tough battle for Momoko, who didn't have the poisonous air of a peerless beauty. Since Mikiwa declined, she could have said it in a nicer way. Yeah, I did get my poison sacs enlarged, but I mean, like, I live in America. That's a completely different beast, you know? I have no idea how much it would cost in, like, a country with even moderately functional healthcare. She didn't decline in a graceful way that Momoko would accept, and I wondered if she wanted a clash like this from the start. So, we were talking about going to the ocean anyway. As if she'd become afraid after Mikiwa's refusal, Yasumi timidly looked up at me and asked, "Jeez, we even bought swimsuits together. Did she think that I was going to refuse her now?" Well, that swimsuit was not just a little, but maybe a whole lot more daring than I was used to, but... Yasumi's face instantly lightened up, and just looking at it made me happy. That's right. We're at a camp and came all the way to the ocean, so if I didn't have fun because I was embarrassed, it'd be a waste. There would be some people at Seijo who would own such private land, of course. Since I bought it, I thought I'd wear it, but now that it was time to put that swimsuit on, I really needed to brace myself mentally. Beach time, beach time! Passing Shoshinji's gate and down to the stairs, there was only one route that led soon to the ocean. Whether it's because there weren't any sea-bathing guests or because nobody else wanted to come out here, there weren't really any houses or nearby facilities. We changed in our rooms and then put on an overgarment, or some people didn't, and then headed down the side stairs to our target, the beach. But still, maybe due to the time and the situation, I felt a little bit differently about the place. Running in the morning and wearing our dogi, I didn't really have any strange feelings, but once I put on this swimsuit, it felt a little bit surreal to have scantily clad young girls walking out of a temple, and I felt that we'd received some sort of divine punishment. In the past, women were forbidden from entering temple gates because we were thought to ignite impure thoughts. And I wasn't even wearing a demure one-piece, but a risque bikini. No, it wasn't just me. It was a refreshing bikini with a base color of white and blue trim. In the past, white swimsuits were said to become transparent when wet, but nowadays that was a needless worry. Even if that was the case, I still felt as if a bikini was a little bit too revealing. The basic lines of the design were rather ordinary, but the combination of colors made it look sharp and pretty. The simple swimsuit was a bit too refreshing in some places and more revealing than normal underwear. But it was a manufactured item sold in normal shops, so many people would have seen it in the ocean or the pool, so I reasoned. Even if people said it looked good on me and praised me, it was still pretty embarrassing to wear. I didn't usually hide when changing, and these are the same people who've seen me in the showers after practice. This is just a swimsuit, so... The reason my skin was red was surely because of the sun shining down on me from high up above. Momoko was wearing an orange-based checkered bikini top, which suited her energetic and carefree girl nature, but the reason it looked awfully childish might be because of the design, which had frills gathered around her chest and skirt. The people who cooked were either my grandma or me. We've always eaten normal Japanese-style home-cooked food. Frills are cute. I have, like... Well, I was gonna say, like, half, but I think just one of my bikinis actually is, like, all frilly and covered in frills. The Yasumi ate the same 3 meals as Momoko, albeit in a lesser amount. She seemed to have developed rather well. Alright, I am skipping the rest of the beach scene because largely we've seen all of this, and I just need to get to the part that we haven't seen. Alright, it was close to 4:30, so you weren't really guaranteed to burn, but under a dazzling sun, it's still possible that you could get a sunburn. I was thinking about warning her that the rough kendo doki against sunburnt skin would be extremely painful, though. This was the first year that Momoko joined, so she didn't have any experience with this sort of thing. She breathed roughly and wiggled her 10 fingers, if if I was going to ask her for help, she was going to be quite a challenger. On the other hand, if it were a delicate type like Yasumi. Now, though I declined Momoko's kind offer, I still did need to put on sunscreen. If I left it for later, there'd be no meaning to it, so I should hurry up and do it myself. It'd be a little bit difficult to properly reach my back, so I would have to ask someone for help. So then... I thought that asking Yasumi would be the best solution. Yasumi hadn't put on any either, so after I was done we could exchange places and I could do the same for her. Normally, Momoko would be there so I wouldn't have had a chance, but without any plan in mind, she had to run towards the ocean. It'd be bad to wait until Momoko got tired of swimming and came back, since Yasumi looked like she had pale, delicate skin. The negotiations went really smoothly. I was already rather exposed, so the sunscreen was applied uniformly to my back without any issue. Now, time to trade places. Yasumi lay down on the beach towel that I had been laying on earlier. What is this face that they've given her? I waited for Yasumi to wriggle around and settle down in place. I knelt by her side. Maybe it was because I was used to my grandpa's medicinal office, but seeing her bare back made my hands itch to move. Oh, that won't do. That won't do. It wasn't bad. I wasn't as bad as Momoko earlier, but my fingers wriggled without me noticing. If I was going to move, then I should be useful. Put an appropriate amount of the viscous liquid onto my palms and rubbed and then placed them across Yasumi's back. Her thin back, whether it was because of my cold hands covered in sunscreen or because Yasumi's body temperature was high, her back felt warm. I rubbed the palms of my hands across Yasumi's completely stiffened back until the white sunscreen was no longer visible. My hands slid smooth across her back. It might be due to the sunscreen, but also Yasumi's naturally smooth skin. I couldn't say that it was healthy, but her beautiful white skin wasn't rough at all and had no wrinkles or blemishes. And because she had let her hair down when she was taking a bath, this was the first time that I had a clear view of her back. Shoko really, having a moment about seeing a girl's naked back. Her back was mostly flat, her delicate shoulder blades pointed out, and it was like a fragile ceramic that a potter sought to make. It was a contradiction, but I tried to add some strength and relax my own strength to gently slide my hands across her back. My fingers just barely touched the surface of her back and brushed her shoulder blades. I had pulled my hands back without thinking. I tried to make up for that by putting more strength into it so I wouldn't be as ticklish. Thinking about it, if Yasumi would have been hurt just by me touching her, she would have been killed by Momoko long ago. The reason I didn't think of that was either due to the heat, or maybe I was just tired, or probably I was just gay. I took my hands off Yasumi's back and then dropped them. Oh, eepy girl. There was still some warmth lingering. Oh no, we've gone inverted colors. We're dark-sided. Looking at my hands, I remembered the moment I touched the Tokosaki no Tsubaki. The Tsubaki flowers fell, and I felt as if something had flowed into me. When Yasumi collapsed earlier, wasn't I nearby? Could it be that in order to stay alive, I needed... The moment I stopped my hand, Yasumi looked up at me, and that's exactly when Momoko, who should have been swimming, returned. Why did her voice come from the direction of the mountains? After swimming in the ocean, she saw a green swimsuit and black hair, so she remembered the watermelon that was soaking in the well. Momoko was holding the item which we used as a baton last night during the test of courage, the sacred kumochi. Momoko said that without any shame, that it was better to use this rather than just a stick. Well, it's true that a wooden sword was suitable for smashing up in a watermelon, however... Oh, Lappy, so, the idea is that if you have a natural well that's, like, dug deep into the ground, the water temperature in the well will actually be, like, decently chill. Maybe, like, some places you can get, like, 40 degree water or so. Probably not that cold here, but still, like, you know, enough to chill it. And so you could just drop a watermelon down there, and keep it, like, really cool without also... I mean, like, before refrigeration, the reason is obvious, but even after refrigeration, people do it because, like, watermelons are a pain in the ass to put in a refrigerator. They do not fit easily in refrigerators. So yeah, you just like put a watermelon down there, keep it cool, and then when you pull it up, then you've got nice cool watermelon. Which, from experience, I can tell you, nice cool watermelon is better to eat than like extremely hot watermelon. Unless you're like grilling the watermelon, which is a separate thing. There was a mysterious location in Shoshinji. There was a place to which I had a fateful connection. There was one additional place besides that clearing with the Tokusaki no Tsubaki, which had caused to scatter last night. The Oni stepping stones. In the past, it was the location from where Natsume-san and I... Oh no! EP Girl syndrome setting in real hard. It was the location from which Natsume-san and I had crossed over to Urashima. Yes, maybe Shoko should go take a look. But, because we've reached 9:30, and also, as you've probably seen, because my sleepy girl syndrome has been acting up something fierce, we are going to stop here for tonight. We are... Ah, there we are. Now it finally remembers where we are. We are close in on halfway down Yasumi's route. We're functionally probably a little bit more than halfway, if you all remember, you know, in Mikiwa's route, it started really picking up after we got to day 4, so we're on day 3, and next week we'll probably get through the rest of day 3, and then the week after that it's feasible that we could finish Yasumi's route, so we could be just a week or two away from the end of Yasumi's route, after which things will get really exciting. But for right now, we're going to fight UV rays from the teenage. And we're going to close out our stream for this week. Thank you all once again for joining me. The VODs will be up a little bit later this week. And yes, good night everybody, because I am very sleepy girl. We'll have to see whether we retroactively have to reset the Yeri vampirism incident counter. But until then, good night everyone.